Well, this is a special conversation at Queer News Tonight about the school shooting, the trans community, and International Transgender Day of Visibility. They all connect. Trans community fears backlash and hate over Nashville shooting on the eve of Transgender Day of Visibility. The Nashville shooter, Audrey Hale, who was killed by responding officers, has been identified as transgender. This marks more than 350 children killed by gun violence and more than 130 mass shootings in 2023 through International Transgender Day of Visibility. That is more mass shootings than days so far this year. The shooting comes on the eve of the Transgender Day of Visibility on March 31st, a day to celebrate the transgender community and raise awareness of the challenges that they face. The Nashville shooter, Audrey Hale, who was killed by responding officers, has been identified as transgender, which makes the timing very difficult. Hale, 28, identified as a transgender male named Hayden, and the shooting happened right before the Transgender Day of Visibility. Hayden's family and friends are shocked and saddened by the news. They say that Hayden was a kind and loving person who never showed any signs of violence. The shooting is a tragedy for the city of Nashville and its entire community, and the transgender community. It is a reminder of the political motivation and the violence that transgender people face on a daily basis. Much of the focus on Hayden has been radical GOP conservatives and evangelicals that blame gun violence on trans health care and other related issues. Apparently, not the crisis of guns. Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted that it was trans health care that is the problem, not guns, and that the leadership of the trans civil rights organizations across America today, because of that and other issues, warn of the significant potential of a dramatic increase in violence against the transgender community. On Transgender Day of Visibility, we remember the transgender people who have been killed and injured in violence. We mourn those lost in Nashville. We also celebrate the transgender people and community who are living their lives openly and proudly and face unprecedented levels of hate and violence in America. To discuss these issues, we have South Florida Gay News community editor John Hayden. We also welcome Mateo Bruer, the executive director of the nonprofit advocacy organization Aqua Foundation, and Mateo is trans. Thank you both. You're joining us here on Queer News Tonight this evening. Nashville, any first thoughts about what we learned and what we're watching in the world in their comments about trans community and gun violence?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to acknowledge, it's a tragedy on multiple levels for multiple families, no matter who the shooter was, no matter how it happened, there are families that are mourning, and this is an absolute tragedy. As to the part of it being a school shooting, it won't be the last. A state lawmaker or a Board of Education person, I don't know, someone in the state's Board of Education has said that we won't fix this because guns are not a problem that needs to be fixed, and didn't even acknowledge it. For the trans community should be scared because they're already being egregiously attacked legislatively, politically, physically, and now this is going to give people who are already crazy but were right on the border of acting crazy, this is going to be the match that lights their haystack.
Yeah, and I think it's important as well to acknowledge that trans people are people at the end of the day, capable of horrendous things, also for the majority part, good, decent people. Just like any other demographic, I think no group is a monolith, and you're never going to be able to blame one thing on what's happening or what has happened. Clearly, in my opinion, and statistics bear this out, the access to high-powered firearms are what greatly increase the danger and the violence and how many people are killed. If we just look at the United States in the past, several decades, when the ban on automatic assault rifles was lifted, these shootings became much more deadly and much more frequent. So regardless of what Marjorie Taylor Greene and others think, if someone has violence in their hearts that they want to commit or a mental health crisis or break, if they don't have access to something that's going to kill many more people in a short amount of time, then the damage is going to be minimized. There's a lot we could be doing to address these issues, and trying to demonize transgender people is, it fits into their narrative, but it's foolish and it's wrong.
Mateo, I have to ask you, when you first heard the news, wherever you were and heard the news first about the shooting, but it was not long after the news of the shooting breaking that they believed it was a transgendered person. What was your first thoughts? What went through your head the first moments of you hearing that news?
Yeah, the unfortunate one of the first thoughts is we're almost desensitized to school shootings in the sense of they're so frequent and it's so upsetting, and the human body can only take so much. And it's especially fearful for me as a parent. I have a young child who's going to be entering public school in just a few months, and it's terrifying. But as a transgender person, especially as a transgender man or trans mask person, hearing that the shooter identifies as a trans male and used he, him pronouns, it was a little bit of, well, as trans masks, we already feel like we are often left out of conversations, or people aren't even aware that some people don't even think we exist. And definitely not to say that trans femmes have it easier because of more visibility. It's often the opposite. We certainly can enjoy some aspects of protection from not being as spoken about. And I think it's an irony, a cruel irony, that on Trans Day of Visibility, or this week, that we really should be celebrating the people in the community who are visible and who are brave. We're becoming visible in a horrible way.
We're reading. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to point out a couple of things that, as far as the pronouns go, we even struggled with that here in this particular story, as we started off naming them, perhaps dead naming them, and then about halfway through we switched to using his name, Hayden. So that shows the confusion that everybody has talking about this. But I think what we did was tell a story and sort of go with a linear way of how he has grown. Outlets like the Daily Mail have intentionally and blatantly just misgendered throughout the show. The second is that when you're put on, and there is absolutely no excuse to ever go on a shooting like this. There's nothing like it. But what made him go it? Perhaps it was the legislation. Perhaps all the anti-trans rhetoric. Perhaps it was all of the official sanctioning of discrimination against him that made him snap. And unfortunately, when most people, most LGBTQ, especially trans people, quote unquote, snap, they commit suicide, which is a tragedy. But the people who are pushing these bills are completely okay with that. It's what they are hoping for. Yeah, go ahead, kill yourself. But other people snap by acquiring guns, 7 of them legally, I have read, and then going to a school and shooting it up. That's what happened to him. And it's terrible, it's wrong, but at some point people are going to break mentally, and people break in different ways.
Yeah. Mateo, I'm also interested in your reaction of in the trans community of this tragedy. It's a tragedy on both sides. I understand later in the year, Aqua Foundation is going to come back with TransCon, and it's a very important opportunity to educate community on trans community issues and broad LGBTQ issues as it relates to trans. And so congratulations to Aqua for that commitment. But for the trans community, I know you don't speak for all trans people, but could you give us some perspective, both for the LB, G and the Q in our own community, and then our allies and broad community. What's going through trans South Florida psyche right now over this?
I mean, a lot of fear. And I think we've been already living under a lot of fear for the last 10 years as a lot of anti-trans rhetoric, violence, and legislation have continued to advance, and they are exploding. It's exponential what we're seeing. And in certain states, I really commend them, the governors and the legislators who are taking steps to become a safe haven. But the reality of it is there are people here and in any state, especially in the South, because a lot of the South in the southern United States are gerrymandered. People of color are often not equally represented in lawmaking. And this is our home. Not everyone can leave. I can't, just say, yeah, let's move to California where the laws will protect us, or New York or whatever. And there's still pockets of people who don't agree. You're never going to be safe if you're out or known to be trans. And that's a terrifying thing. And I think that really comes down to it is who would openly or willingly subject themselves to fear, to violence, to having their rights be stripped away for what? So they can compete on the women's team in high school sports? Nobody's going to do that. It doesn't make any sense. People who are trans, people who are queer of any way, just want to live their lives and just want to be able to be free.
It's so interesting to me because I've never heard the parallel drawn that was so clear to me of trans and gay men, because significant age difference between the two of us, and you've just illustrated why would trans people go through this if they really were not who they were and wanted to be authentic. That was the exact same argument that I made in college in the 1980s. Why would gay men go through the challenges that we did, especially in the slurs that took place in the AIDS crisis, if we had the ability to take the pill? Of course we would take the pill, and overwhelming majority of gay men would have said exactly as I did. It's the exact same observation you just made. Why would we endure this? There's only one reason why. This is who we are. Yeah,
and I think there's something beautiful in all of us who are gender or sexuality diverse in taking that back. And I think there is a place of fear where it would be safer or easier or whatever, because you wouldn't have to fear if your family's going to reject you. But I think there's a growing movement as well of people being like, no, I'm proud to be trans. And that's how I feel. It's something about like taking a hand, having a part in creation, right? If you're religious, if that's your flavor, I am gonna probably use this quote incorrectly, and I can't remember who said it, but it's God made transgender people for the same reason that there are grapes and not wine, or wheat and not bread. It's so that humans can take part in creation. I'm not religious myself, but I really like that sentiment, and I think that can be a comfort to a lot of people.
Let's take a moment to talk about guns. John, I know you've been front and center. You've done so many stories about gun violence in America, and South Florida Gay News has really been great on keeping this subject in front of us. Tiring as it is. I think it's interesting this week here in Florida, our concern for our trans community here in Florida. At the exact same time that this event was going on in Nashville, our legislative session in Tallahassee is on the verge of moving and pushing legislation that basically creates open carry and reduces our gun responsibility. What do you think about what we're watching in terms of guns, not only here in Florida but broadly?
Well, a natural progression. And while this legislation sounds terrible and frightening, and it is, there's also the fact that there's a law of diminishing returns. Our gun checks in this state, and let's face it, for this country, are laughable. They are easily circumvented. They're ineffective. At a minimum, they're ineffective. So I don't really know if this is going to make things worse. It's just going to make it harder to rein them in, because the fact is, it's literally out of control. I'm old enough to remember when mass shootings stayed on the headlines for more than 24 hours, and we're beyond that point now. Something will push this off of the map soon, because we're so desensitized not only to gun violence but to mass violence as well, and to the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world who, God help us, take the guns, don't take the hormones.
You know, last thought in our conversation on this the really tragic news for both LGBTQ community and the Nashville community, and really all Americans. Mateo, I'll give you the opportunity again that you don't speak for all trans people, I understand, but a leading voice of one of the leading nonprofit advocacy organizations, Aqua Foundation here in South Florida. What would you want us to say to the trans community in a moment like this? What's appropriate for us in our speaking to the trans community that's appropriate and would be appreciated, and know that they're heard and they're seen on International Transgender Day of Visibility?
Do you mean as an ally?
As an ally,
yeah.
Yeah.
Really just that you're with us, and I think they're far and few between, but there are people in our own community who want to drop the T, right? And that's hurtful, obviously. I think we are all queer. We're all under this umbrella, and knowing that y'all, the rest of everybody under the queer umbrella, has our backs is invaluable, and in tangible ways as well. You know, speaking up not just for to continue and keep the rights that other, gay, lesbian, and bisexual people have, but to try and elect people who also support trans rights and, our access to hormones, our access to legal name changes. All of these are potentially at risk. So having allies who can speak to that and also back it up with donations, with if they're a business owner, their business practices, using whatever platform you have to amplify this message is really going to be meaningful.
Well, as we said in this special conversation at the top of our show tonight, it's critically important that we discuss this. Mateo puts in front of us that even in our own LGBTQ plus community with allies, we wonder if we're doing a good enough job or voicing up enough support for our trans community. This is a week that we absolutely have to do, and Queer News Tonight brings attention to International Transgender Day of Visibility, and we bring attention to the mass shooting in Nashville, and tragic both for the potential for our trans community and all lumping all trans people into the same bucket, which is certainly not true for any segment of American society, but also for those people that lost in Nashville. And coming from a community that lost 49 in Orlando in 2016 at the Pulse shooting, we understand what Nashville is going through right now. Well, good evening, and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBT plus daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live, and then we're available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Wednesday, March 29, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it. Hotspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same models of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ plus community. Our mission is to support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian, trans, student youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS healthcare, business, political advocacy, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
Well, let's welcome John Hayden. A journalist for 28 years, he now works for several outlets, including South Florida Gay News as a reporter and the community editor, covering politics, entertainment, local events, directly impacting the LGBTQ community and more. John's interviewed everyone from presidents to Oscar winners. He's excited for tomorrow when he plans to stay home alone and finish off 5 loads. I'm assuming that's of laundry. Oh, there it is, of laundry. Welcome, John.
I've got my fabric softeners all laid out for you, Al.
Okay, yeah.
Let's welcome anchor Mateo Bruer. Mateo is the new executive director of the Aqua Foundation for Women, Florida's only 501c3 focused on improving the lives of LGBTQ plus women through grants, initiatives, and community building. Mateo's approach to social justice work is influenced by his professional experience, his academic studies, and his lived experience as a queer transgender person of color. Welcome, Mateo.
Thank you. And I just wanted to shout out really quickly, on Sunday, this Sunday, April 2nd, the Aqua Foundation and the University of Miami are having our annual LGBTQ plus Emerging Leaders Conference from 11 a.m. to 4. It's completely free. Open to all South Florida students. You don't have to be a University of Miami student. Also, Sunday, May 7th, Aqua Girl is back with Aqua Girl Mixers. So that's going to be, it's going to be legendary bingo at Hamburger Mary's in Wilton Manor. We're really excited about it. All that information is available on our social media.
And when is that last one?
May 7th.
So is it Saturday?
Sunday.
I think that's the 8th.
Well,
but okay,
first week
we'll get it figured out. But it's definitely next weekend.
Yeah.
Well,
the 7th.
No, May.
Oh, May.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought. Oh, God.
It's time for the home. All right.
What was that?
Right.
What was that? I'm so sorry, Mateo.
No worries. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Wednesday, March 29th, 2023.
Well, first, let's queer up the world view. Study reports complaints of harm to LGBTQ have increased by 11%. According to the annual report by the Aguda Israel's LGBTQ plus task force, the number of complaints of harm from members of the LGBTQ community rose by 11% last year in 2022. The task force received 3,309 complaints of harm to the LGBTQ community compared to 2,971 in 2021. The number of complaints peaked in June, which is Pride Month. 25% of the complaints were received in November and December after the Knesset election and the establishment of the new right-wing government. The number of reports of LGBT phobia in the public sphere, as well as reports of discrimination by businesses, also rose significantly. The report is based on self-reporting of the Aguda hotline, with some complaints filed by phone and others online. The report was written in cooperation with the Israeli Institute for Gender and LGBTQ plus Studies, headed by Dr. Sigal Golden. About half the complaints, 51%, concerned harm to the LGBTQ plus community in media and social media, and the rest, 49%, concerned incidents on the level of personal interaction, some in schools and in the public space. 35% of the incidents took place in the public sphere, on the street, in recreational spaces, or in public transport. The report says that the high percentage of incidents in the public sphere may be the result of an increase in LGBTQ plus phobic comments in public discourse over the last year. It's an interesting study report that anecdotally can be applied to a lot of communities that we're reporting on around the world. We've reported increases in Hungary and Warsaw, in Poland broadly. Of course, we know what's happening in Russia, and basically they have decided that there are no gay people in the country of Russia, and even if you say otherwise, becomes illegal. This story is interesting, I think, because Israel, once upon a time, was considered much more LGBT embracing than they are in 2023. And their reason is similar to our reason here in America. A much more conservative and cleric evangelical conservatism is taking hold in Israel. And when that happens, hate goes up. It's the opposite of religion soothes. No, evangelical religion causes more harm.
And it's, they're a democracy, but they're driven by a theocracy. There's like a shadow government, not to the same extent that you get over in Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Yemen. But let's face it, they've now got hardline conservatives in power that are going to push this rhetoric. And that's how they shore it up. Because if they don't marginalize every single person who's not in their very shaky coalition, then the whole coalition falls apart. So they are literally gaining power with every anti-LGBTQ hateful statement that comes out of their mouths.
Yeah.
And I think it's those statements that, as we've seen here in the United States, when hate and I'm thinking of our past president who also normalized anti-Semitism, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Black, when those things are spoken out loud, I think everybody has biases, and it's our job to confront those in ourselves and to not speak on them. But when someone in power speaks them freely, it becomes okay for people to express those things and not challenge them within themselves.
All right. Well, John, it's time for us to look at our clock here, so we'll continue with you.
All right. Up next, let's queer up South Florida gay news, sending a message to Tallahassee. They marched, they chanted, and they sang. In this week's SFGN, I look at what was more than your average Sunday fun day along Wilton Drive. More than 1,000 people marched from the Pride Center up Dixie Highway and back down Wilton Drive in pride colors, and the brave ones wore heels. The March in Heels was a rally against anti-LGBTQ bills make their way through the legislature. After speeches, groups made the march, stopping at action stations along the way. At one stop, some registered to vote, others, including myself, re-registered for mail-in ballot. At another stop, local drag entertainer Nicole Hollowell detailed attacks on drag entertainment. Another stop had trans inclusives Tatiana Williams detailing threats to the trans community, while the final action stop had teachers sharing heartbreaking stories of the impact of Don't Say Gay. Will it make an immediate impact on votes this session? Probably not, but their voices were heard. The QR codes they set up maxed out halfway through the event, and more than 1,000 emails were sent not only to lawmakers, but also to Florida family-owned businesses who are our allies, but also support lawmakers who sponsor and vote for these bills. But the best thing I saw was a lot of new faces. And Al, we have talked about this before, that we go out to fundraisers, we go out to rallies, we go out to public panel discussions, and we always see the same people. But and a lot of the same people were there. The activists that we need and rely on were there. SunServe was there. The LGBTQ chorus was there, and they were singing proudly and beautifully. But I saw a lot of people I didn't recognize, and they were fired up. Some came with their own signs. Some came with their kids. Some came with their dogs. It was really a beautiful morning, and it gave me hope, because it wasn't the same 200 or 300 people that I always see. It was hundreds of new people, and they made the march. They went down. The line during each group to register to vote was inspiring. So for the first time in a while, I've seen a sign that maybe we're starting to attract more people. Because the fact is, that's all we can do this year. All we can do is attract new people and build a solid foundation going into 2024.
Because the reason is we're licking our wounds.
We are.
That's all we can do right now is heal. Any thoughts, Aqua? In terms of the voice for women in Florida, is drag a focus for the foundation? Do you,
as far as advocacy?
Yeah, in terms of advocacy.
Oh, I mean, I think any attack on any kind of queer issue is within our purview. I mean, we are really here for everyone who identifies with femininity, whether that means all of the time or not, full time or just sometimes. And I think drag is an important part of our history, an important part of our community. Next, let's queer up sports. NHL hockey owner says just doesn't compute on players skipping Pride nights.
The song is called Rainbowland, and it's a Miley Cyrus song.
Now, they cited their Christian beliefs as the reason. Eric Stahl has said he's never worn a Pride jersey before. But shortly after the comment, photos surfaced online of him wearing one in Montreal during the 2020 season. Why have we seen a change in players' decisions in only a couple of years?
Well, I think what we're seeing is, despite what change we're seeing, overall, we're continuing to see the fact that the message for the LGBTQ plus community is that they are not welcome. And it's, surprising and disappointing that players who previously did wear a jersey are now deciding that they are not wearing a jersey. And that's due to the precedent set previously by other players refusing to wear a jersey. However, Pride nights are really, they're a means just to acknowledge that many individuals have had to hide their sexuality because society only views heterosexual relationships as normal.
A growing number of players, including James Reimer, Eric and Mark Stahl, and Ivan Provorov, have chosen not to wear their respective teams' Pride Night uniforms this season. In the recent edition of Hockey Night in Canada, Pittsburgh Penguins president of hockey operations, Brian Burke, joined Ron McLean to reiterate his beliefs, as well as touch on his own religious upbringing. He said, to our friends, quote, to our friends in the LGBTQ plus community, don't be discouraged. We've had a couple of minor setbacks from a tiny number of players, but we've made steady and spectacular progress in this space, end quote. Reimer and both Stahl brothers cited their Christianity as part of their reasons for refusing to wear the special edition jerseys. Burke is a founding member of the You Can Play Project, an organization founded in 2011 following the passing of his late son Brendan, with the stated mission of ensuring the safety and inclusion of all LGBTQ people in sports, including athletes, coaches, staff, and fans. Brendan was a former equipment manager for the Miami University Red Hawks men's hockey team and made international headlines in coming out back in 2009, while also speaking out against the culture of homophobia in sports. He was killed in a car crash in 2010. I think the Pride Nights are something that are really an easy ask. I think it's a really easy way. I especially like the different, it's not always Pride Night. Sometimes it's a particular ethnic group. Sometimes it's a country of origin. These are fun ways to really engage with your fans and tell them, yeah, we want you here. So when players are deciding not to wear a specific journey or not to participate, they're really sending a clear message, we don't want you here, which, I mean, we're paying for their contracts, right? We're paying tickets, and our money's just as green.
There are a few Russian players that may be anti-gay. They may literally be not wearing them because they are afraid for their families and backlash over in Russia. Not that any of these games would ever get to Russia because they've got such tight media, state media control. They get a half a pass from me. No. I'm sort of buying it. What I'm not buying is the people who are just like, oh, I can't wear this jersey or Jesus is going to cry. No, absolutely not. Put on the damn jersey.
Okay, Jesus crying with my rainbow colors. I'm a person of faith. I always lead with that. they get this totally wrong. I'm not even giving them half a pass. They get it totally wrong. Okay. And the reason they get it totally wrong is their religious faith has no contradiction with a Pride Night where you're wearing a shirt to say, we're just recognizing that you exist. The recognition of my existence is not a violation of your religion. You shop in the same stores I do, you eat in the same restaurants I do. It's not that you wouldn't go into a restaurant because a gay person is in the restaurant or a gay person is serving you as your server in the restaurant. So the standard justification of my religion prevents me from putting on this shirt seems so inherently silly, it's beyond silly. You look silly for doing it. And one of the reasons I love the story is the president or the owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins is basically saying, look, we're just saying that we're a world community. And let's say, even with what Putin has done, it doesn't mean we hate Russians. Let's have a Russian night. Or it doesn't mean that we hate, because we don't like Netanyahu, let's have a Jewish faith night. It seems to be all so ridiculous. And it also seems to me one of the points of why Donald Trump is so good. Because he can flash the pan of the fan on these kind of people that get incensed over the inanely stupid, which is what these players are.
Absolutely agreed. We move on and we queer up entertainment. Dolly Parton and Miley Cyrus banned in Wisconsin school over Rainbowland.
The song is called Rainbowland, and it's a Miley Cyrus song from 2017 and a duet with Dolly Parton. One parent I spoke with today says the controversy is more about rainbows than it is the actual lyrics of the song. Sarah Schindler can't wait for the spring concert at Higher Elementary. Her daughter Audrey can barely contain her own excitement.
She was excited to be in the concert and asked, are you going to be able to get off of work and come to my concert? And I said, yes, I will come to your concert.
So it was a letdown when Audrey came home Wednesday and told her mom one of her favorite songs got pulled from the show.
She said, we are not allowed to sing those songs anymore.
Superintendent Jim Siebert confirms the 2017 Miley Cyrus and Dolly Parton duet Rainbowland was dropped from the set list. Lyrics include, wouldn't it be nice to live in paradise, where we're free to be exactly who we are? Siebert told us, quote, it was determined that Rainbowland could be perceived as controversial, citing a specific school board policy. After we pressed Siebert for a reason why it's controversial, the superintendent told us the district questioned whether it was appropriate for the age and maturity level of the students, and because of, quote, social or personal impacts on them.
Tell me why a song about rainbows isn't appropriate for a first grader to sing.
The school board defines a controversial issue as one that, quote, may be the subject of intense public argument.
I think for some reason the district and the administration sees rainbows as a political symbol.
Schindler believes recent school board decisions about LGBT issues could be a factor because of the rainbow's association with gay rights. But the district features rainbows on its 4K enrollment signs, and Siebert also told us the Muppets song Rainbow Connection will be a part of the Higher concert. Maybe they think Miley Cyrus is controversial.
Yeah, I don't know.
Schindler says she's now struggling to explain the decision to her daughter.
To me, that is a message that I want my child to feel. 7-year-olds should be free to be themselves.
Rainbowland, a song by Dolly Parton and Miley Cyrus that celebrates acceptance, was recently banned from a spring concert set list at a Wisconsin elementary school. Sarah Schindler's first grade daughter at the school came home from school one day in shock saying, quote, we can't sing it anymore. We can't sing Rainbow Connection, and we can't sing Rainbowland, end quote. Temple, a first grade dual language teacher at Higher Elementary in Waukesha, Wisconsin, appeared to be just as upset as Schindler and her daughter. She tweeted, quote, my first graders were so excited to sing Rainbowland for our spring concert, but it has been vetoed by our administration. When will it end, end quote. According to Schindler, the school board had a conservative flip in recent years, following uproar over COVID-19 mitigation strategies. One of those controversial topics is a policy saying teachers can't have any kind of signage that could be deemed political. Discussion of pronouns with students was another thing that came up, and teachers aren't allowed to wear rainbows. Lee Rachel Tracy, Another Waukesha resident with children enrolled in the district spoke with the LA Times about the ongoing controversy, saying, quote, "The school district of Waukesha has really cracked down on anything LGBTQ." I mean, oh my God, this is not ridiculous, but oh my God, this is so ridiculous. I mean, they're not asking for the kids to, you know, put on a two-piece and ride a wrecking ball into the school auditorium while they sing Rainbowland. My God, this is terrible. And I read another quote from a parent that said, "We don't know what's going on here. We woke up one morning and found out we're in Florida."
Yeah. I mean, and kids, all of this coming down to protecting kids, kids don't care. Kids are more open-minded than adults. I think we can all agree with that. I've been asked by a kid one time at a park with my daughter, "Are you a man or a woman?" They said, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I said, "Neither." And they were like, "Okay." And that was it. That's it. They don't care.
You know, wait, I'm getting some news in my IFB. Sesame Street has just announced that they are banning Kermit the Frog from ever appearing on the show. Yeah.
Long overdue.
Yes, right. You know, it's interesting in the degree of the ridiculousness of this story. It would be funny. It would be The Onion if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
It's funny if it wasn't true, but it is true because the good school board in Waukesha, Wisconsin thinks that this is important and that this is saving their children from something that they're saving their children from. While, I just point out, while the Waukesha School District and this elementary school is saving their children from rainbows, and not even rainbows, songs about rainbows, while they're focusing their attention on that and the pronouns that someone might use in their elementary school, they're probably not prepared for the mass shooting violence that's getting ready to happen in their school district. 130 of them already so far this year. And instead of focusing on the things that are really, really important to keep your children safe, you're focusing on rainbows. It would be hilariously funny if it wasn't tragically sad. Just think.
Well, next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service every week at 10:30 a.m. Eastern.
I am Daniel Quintana, CFO of Domi Real Estate, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. And we need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world telling these types of stories in motion and sound. And that is the Hotspot's passion and the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including John Hayden and Mateo Bruer, We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our broadcast, we have one final story. Next, let's queer up the big interview. Pride Center's Christopher Bates discusses 30th anniversary diversity honors and Harvey milk. Christopher H. Bates is the chairman of the Pride Center of Equality Park at Equality Park Board of Directors and is part of the team presenting the Diversity Honors Awards on April 1st at Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. In a recent interview with Queer News Tonight and myself, Christopher talked about the 30 years long journey of the Pride Center at Equality Park and the work it is doing for the community. The center has positively impacted 125,000 residents and visitors to South Florida every year, with more than 35,000 adults and youth attending the activities at the center itself. He also talked about diversity honors and how it acknowledges members of the international, national, and local community who are working to improve the quality of life for all LGBTQ+ citizens. This year's The Pride Center at Equality Park Alan Schubert Award is going to be given to Carol Moran, and tickets for the event are available now at diversityhonors.org. Well, this evening on Queer News Tonight, we have a very interesting interview. Actually, somebody that I have not met before here in the South Florida community. And that is Christopher H. Bates. He is the chairman of the Pride Center Board of Directors. And everyone, of course, knows the Pride Center, one of the most important LGBT gathering locations in the entire country. When you say Boys Town and the Pride Center there, you say West Hollywood or Los Angeles, you say the Castro in San Francisco, you say the Pride Center at Equality Park. The difference is Wilton Manors has 14,000 residents, and it sits right in the middle of it. And of course, it's a Pride Center for our entire gigantic LGBTQ community that spills over far beyond the city limits of Wilton Manors. For more than 40 years, he lived in Washington, D.C. in a health career, and he has spent his entire career in public service positions. He's here today to talk about a great event coming at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. And of course, that's the Harvey Milk Foundation and Pride Center at Equality Park Diversity Honors coming April 1st. We're so happy to meet you and welcome you to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's an exciting event, and before we get into the event, let's talk a little bit about the Pride Center. Excited to meet you for the first time. I've been into the Pride Center 347,000 times over the last 67 years. And it's really the heart and heartbeat of our LGBTQ community. Tell us a little bit about the Pride Center itself.
Well, the center serves primarily as a place where people can seek services, not all of which are provided by us. Many of the services that are offered at the Pride Center, individual groups and organizations, rent spaces from us to provide those services to the community, whether they're support groups for substance abuse or alcoholism. There's a lot of support groups around spirituality and natural science, medicines, and things of that sort. One of the things that we're proud of is that recently we built an apartment building with 48 units for disabled and low-income residents of Broward County. And within no time of our opening, we literally had hundreds of applicants, many of which, of course, didn't qualify, but our occupancy is 100%, and people seem to be very comfortable there. We're also a real gathering place for events and things that happen in the community. So I'm excited about our future and definitely the past we've had.
It's interesting for people that don't understand what a Pride Center is. Let's zero in on what the Pride Center says about its mission. And it's on record of saying that the mission of the Pride Center at Equality Park is to provide a welcoming, safe space, an inclusive home that celebrates, nurtures, and empowers the LGBTQ plus communities and our friends, which means allies and neighbors here in South Florida. That pretty much covers it. Different than a bar, different than a business, different than other a nonprofit healthcare organization or trans advocacy group. You're really a meeting place of safe space. Tell us a little bit why the Pride Center needs to provide this embracement of safe space for our LGBTQ community.
Well, one, all of our community is not centered in Wilton Manors. Our community really is all of South Florida. I mean, we have people who come to the Pride Center on a regular basis from Palm Beach County as well as Miami-Dade County. So we consider ourselves central to South Florida. People like to come because it's our space. We as LGBTQ population, people know that they're going to be welcome there from the moment they walk in the door to all the people on the staff that they meet. I mean, we have a large senior population that comes on Tuesdays for coffee and conversation. Recently, well over 150 men have showed up for that event, and it's a regular Tuesday morning event in our community. Other groups like lesbians groups come to the Pride Center. There's African American organizations that meet at the Pride Center. The Dolphin Democrats are one of our big population groups that come to the Pride Center for regular meetings. So there's a great cross-section of groups and organizations and ethnic and racial groups that meet at the Pride Center because it's ours. We promote ourselves as for everybody, and we even have non-gay and lesbian and, transgender people coming to the Pride Center to use our services as well.
It's wonderful. Diversity Honors and the opportunity to meet and talk to you gives us an opportunity to draw some attention to the Pride Center and its focus. One of the things that I didn't realize in preparing to sit down and talk to you is this year the Pride Center at Equality Park will be celebrating its 30th anniversary. My goodness, the time is flying. I don't know if you and I are that old or the Pride Center is that old, but somebody is that old, and I want to get to the bottom of who that is. What do you think about the anniversary coming up this year for Pride Center?
Well, it really speaks to a need being filled in our community. And that need has been there for a long time. That's why the 30 years. But I also think it speaks to an ongoing need that we'll need to fill in the future. We're still looking at our campus as what might more we want to develop on our campus because there are so many needs in our community. And so as we think about the future, we know that the Pride Center is going to be a central part of that future.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Let's just to provide some focus light on Pride Center. You're on Dixie Highway. Our main offices, we're a 501c3. Our main offices of Hotspots Magazine, Happening On Television Network, are almost across the street from you.
Right.
Our art gallery, which we opened January 1st for LGBT as an art gallery, is almost directly across the street from you. And there's this emerging strip on Old Dixie Highway of LGBT embracement, the city stage, and other theater. It's kind of like a reemergence is taking place in 2023 of new, and your anniversary kind of helps put us be able to celebrate that. A lot of people who haven't been to Pride Center, when I have especially LGBT that comes from out of town, I have lots of friends in West Hollywood and lots of friends in Palm Springs, and I always bring them to the Pride Center to poke them in the eye and say, see, this is what we have. and you don't, and kind of make the joke.
Sure.
It's really gigantic. It sits on 5.5 acres. I read pre-pandemic, we haven't seen the real post-pandemic numbers yet, but pre-pandemic, 35,000 people a year came to the Pride Center campus. It's just jaw-dropping, the amount of impact that the Pride Center at Equality Park has on our community.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the diversity of activities that take place at the Pride Center. I mean, we have an auditorium that is also used as a synagogue on Friday nights, and on Sunday mornings as a non-denominational Christian group meets there. Lots of groups and organizations like to come and have their events on our campus. And because of that, you know, we get the numbers of people to come through. The other thing is when people come to town, when they don't know anything about Broward County, they're most often referred to, go to the Pride Center, they can tell you how to get around and how to figure out where you might want to live or what are some of the best bread and breakfasts to go to. And also, if you're in difficult situations, we can also make references to emergency services that exist in Broward.
Services that are needed. It's very impressive to me, and it's interesting also. Robert Boo is the executive director.
That's correct.
He's an icon in LGBTQ community in South Florida, but outside of Pride Center, we have churches, we have bars, we have halls, we have meeting rooms. Outside of an LGBTQ Pride Center, it's curious that this opportunity with you gives us an opportunity for a moment to discuss why is this concept of a gathering point still important? We can do all kinds of things. We're not in the closet. We're not hidden like we once upon a time in rejection might have been. And all of the changes that have taken place from your seat as board chairman of Pride Center at Equality Park, why is the future so necessary for the mission of a community center like Equality Park?
Well, I think it's in the name, center. What is the center of the community? You know, and when you think about the city or the community at large, you're going to say, well, wherever the mayor lives and the city council is, and those kinds of organizations that drive the politics of the community. Well, when people think about coming into Broward County or South Florida, they think about, I need to know where I might find out about everything that's happening. And we serve that purpose in this county and in this region. We try to stay on top of all the activities that are happening. We're in partnership with all the businesses around us. We help support opportunities for people to get together and learn and better get educated about all the kinds of things that are both in our favor and against us, if you will. And when people know and understand that about the very diverse role that the Pride Center serves, it's going to be the place that people come. It's going to be the place that people gravitate to, and also the place that people in the general LGBTQ plus community will say, I don't have that answer, but I think you can get it at the Pride Center.
We always make the joke, the need for a Pride Center at Equality Park has lessened so much here in Florida because we've got a great governor supporting us. And wait, maybe I got that a little wrong.
Yeah, you may want to reframe that.
I better do a little more research on that question, Christopher. One of the things I'm also interested in, from your perspective, 3 years as board chair, 30-year celebration of the Equality Park. And the footprint there, I've learned about the history expansion over really 40 years of this real effort. Over the time that you've been board chair and the 30th anniversary that'll be celebrated this year, what are you most proud of in terms of what the Pride Center has accomplished?
Our survival. You know, a lot of groups and organizations didn't survive COVID. A lot of groups and organizations have not been able to sustain relationships with funders in the community and also with groups and organizations in the community. We were operating and functioning all during COVID. No, people couldn't come in the center and gather, but they could call in, they could have conversations with people, they could be referred to groups and organizations that could help them. And as long as there are needs in our community, both for the well-heed and the not so well-heed, there will be the Pride Center.
You know, it makes me think about one of my favorite quotes from Harvey Milk, and I thought about that when you were speaking there. Harvey Milk said a very famous quote, and one of my favorites. He said, "The events that started the American Revolution were the meetings and the meeting locations of our homes, our pubs, and our street corners." And I love that quote when I think about the Pride Center, because isn't that exactly what you are? You're
Yes.
our home, you're our pub, you're our street corner. That's where everyone gathers.
That is correct. Yeah. And I mean, you know, we have homeless people who come to the Pride Center, and while we don't provide services to them, we work very hard to connect them to services. We try to make sure that when they leave our doors, they know where they can go to get the support that they need, whether it's mental health treatments or housing for the night. Some of the homeless guys have dogs or animals, and then we try to help them facilitate that need for their pets as well. So I can't say enough about the diversity of opportunity to serve people in our community, such as the Pride Center does.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that leads us to Diversity Honors, actually. Seminole Hard Rock on April 1st, Saturday, 7 p.m. Is going to be the 7th anniversary of Diversity Honors, and it's a unique partnership between the Harvey Milk Foundation and the Pride Center at Equality Park. You can get tickets at diversityhonors.org. Christopher, you wrote something in talking about Diversity Honors to us when we were preparing for getting to talk to you, and you wrote something that I thought was very interesting. You said, quote, in writing this, "We want your Queer News Tonight audience to know that Diversity Honors recognizes members of our international, national, and local community leaders who are working to improve the quality of life for all LGBTQ plus citizens. The event is our public acknowledgement of their work and dedication and their ongoing commitment to our full integration into the life of our global community." Powerful words. Diversity Honors commitment of the Harvey Milk Foundation uniting with Pride Center at Equality Park, being held at a iconic supportive LGBT organization like the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Help us connect those dots of what Diversity Honors is intentioned to do, as you outlined when you wrote that, about recognizing international, national, and local leaders.
Well, first of all, we don't live in a vacuum on the planet anymore. I mean, the internet has opened up things in so many special ways. But the moment we had air travel, the moment when, you know, we had ships that could cross seas, we started connecting with other gay or LGBTQ plus communities all around the world. And those relationships fed for all of us ideas about how to improve our communities, ideas about how to work with political leaders to ensure that our civil rights are not ignored, and that at all times that we're included in the conversation of citizenry and the right to live open and freely in societies. We cannot ignore the fact that we are a one world family. And while we talk about ourselves as LGBTQ plus community people, we're members of the larger community as well. And so it behooves us to establish relationships internationally, maintain those relationships, learn from those relationships, and share what knowledges and experiences we have here in the U.S. About how to coexist, not only with our allies, but sometimes our detractors.
You know, very well said. Christopher, we're all week long, we're going to be highlighting recipients at Diversity Honors, because it gives us an opportunity to focus on international, national, and local really heroes that are being represented by and recognized by the Harvey Milk Foundation and Pride Center at Equality Park at Diversity Honors. So we're going to present interviews all week long of recipients. The first, we're going to be showing it in just a day, is the Harvey Milk Medal. And Queen Mother Nicole Murray Rodriguez is going to be presented. In 50 years, I said in the interview, I rarely get humbled in terms of the advocacy that an individual represents. But this is a person that has foundational roots in the HRC and the National Task Force and GLAAD and Chavez and Harvey Milk, and work directly with Harvey Milk, going to win the Harvey Milk Medal. The Queen Mother of the international court system, which long before RuPaul was the iconic drag organization in America and in the world. So Nicole Murray Rodriguez, that should be a moment. I specifically asked Nicole, are you going to be presenting in drag, and given what's going on in Florida, and absolutely no question about it.
Wonderful.
Thoughts about the Harvey Milk Medal and the awards program at Diversity Honors?
One, it's absolutely important to recognize people of courage and commitment who, in spite of all the odds against them, stand up and speak out and advocate for themselves and their community. Oftentimes people are being advocates and they're not with a band of people behind them. Oftentimes they're solo, alone, speaking to leadership, and sometimes even working with smoke and mirrors, trying to help them understand the importance of not alienating us from the larger society, and including us and respecting us as human beings on this planet. So it's important that we recognize.
And you jump from Nicole, who represents advocacy and justifies the Harvey Milk Medal, of course, but then the Harvey Milk Foundation's Global Business Leadership Award, interesting to me, is presented to Damian McKinney, and he's the CEO of Stoli Group. And tell us a little bit about why business support for LGBTQ community is so important.
We need jobs. People in our community need jobs, and we need businesses and organizations that hire people to hire our people also, and to treat them with dignity and respect in the workplace. And it's important that large organizations such as Stoli and other companies of its size and larger lead the brigade on how to include and to make diversity a reality in their organizations, and not some kind of fluke or some kind of incidental thing that's going to go away. Diversity is something that we are going to be, I pray, living with for the rest of mankind in a way that we have never done in our past.
Yeah, and then an interesting award that must be very personal to you, the Pride Center at Equality Parks Alan Schubert Award. And if you're not aware, Alan Schubert was among the very foundation pillars of the organization of Pride Center, and giving to somebody who was also there in the first days of the formation of what ultimately would become the Pride Center, and that is Carol Moran. And I love it because she's a business owner on Wilton Drive with Apartment 9F as a restaurant owner. Advocacy, she was in that Oakland Park, Oakland Drive, Oakland Park Boulevard small, tiny office right at the very formation, and was right there at the beginning. And she represents our women's community. The dedication of the Schubert Award and its importance. Tell us a little about that.
Pioneers. Someone's got to be a first. Someone's got to pave the way and be the example for what change can look like and what is needed to make change happen. And she has been that. And her fortitude over the years, her commitment over the years, and her example over the years is something that has to be heralded and celebrated so that young people and others who come behind her understand, one, how she got there, two, what kept her there, and three, we have an obligation to show her the respect and love for the commitment that she showed us.
Yeah, I love that. And then the Diversity Honors Award and multiple to Jacqueline Lorble and Sabrina Alfonso from the South Florida Symphony Orchestra. Iconic, their representation on Wilton Drive. Latrice Royale from RuPaul's Drag Race. Senator Chevron Jones, a dramatic fight last year when Don't Say Gay started, and then an organization being recognized, which I just love. The Bears of South Florida are being recognized at Diversity Honors. The Diversity Honors Awards in these categories, thoughts about these kind of awards?
Well, it's just that, diverse. Our community is diverse. These awards are diverse to reflect the various aspects of organization and individual contributions that are made to make us the community that we have become. And we hope that by honoring these folks and honoring these organizations, that those who come behind them, young people especially, will understand that when you give of yourself, such as these folks have and these organizations have, you really will be honored at some point in time. A lot of our society is about right now, right now, right now. But the truth is, some gratification is going to be delayed. And hopefully, as my grandmother would say, hopefully you get your flowers before you die.
Oh, yeah.
And so this would be a time for us to do that, to recognize these groups and organizations. And I love the fact that we have not only cultural aspects in the awarding, but we also have the political, and then we have the general population.
Yeah, lovely. I'm looking forward to it. I've been to Diversity Honors many times. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to do reporting and going to be present. Mostly I'm going because I know it's going to be wonderful and I want to have a good time. You know, another favorite Harvey Milk quote I think of when I think about what Pride Center at Equality Park and the Harvey Milk Foundation is doing is another one of my favorite Harvey Milk quotes. And he said, "I know you can't live on hope alone, but without hope, life is not worth living. So you and you and you got to give them hope. You've got to give them hope." Don't you think that's exactly what y'all are doing at Diversity Honors?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that when we talk about these individuals and they talk about themselves, that people understand that while these look like isolated activities and isolated efforts, there are many people all around the world and even within our own country and our own communities who are making strides to make things better. Everybody is not always going to be heralded in front of an audience such as what we're going to have on the 1st at Seminole, but there will be people who will recognize what they do. And I hope that when those opportunities come, that more than few people are present to hear.
Yeah. If you want to have some hope in the time that we're living, let's face it, we're facing attacks unlike probably anything that we've seen, at least in this century since it started in 2000. You want to be at Diversity Honors, especially this year. And it's going to be at the Seminole Hard Rock. Hotel and Casino on Saturday, April 1st, 7 p.m. You can get your tickets now at diversityhonors.org, and you're going to see a spectacular program. You're going to hear from many interesting honorees and recipients, and you're going to get to rub elbows with so many interesting people in our LGBTQ plus community and our allies. Christopher H. Bates, board chair of Pride Center at Equality Park. It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to Diversity Honors.
Okay. I look forward to seeing you there.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth